5:15, and we're going to begin the work session meeting for January the 30th, 2024 here in Bel Air Town Hall. Have Mr. Krantz call the roll.
Good evening, everyone. We will call roll this evening by going around announcing our names and titles. My name is Michael Krantz, Director of Administration.
Jane Sudbrink, Recording Secretary.
Mary Chance, Town Commissioner.
Jake Taylor, Town Commissioner.
Paula Edding, Chair.
Steve Chismore, Commissioner.
Jim Rutledge, Town Commissioner.
Eddie Hopkins, Town Administrator.
Elizabeth Thompson, Town Council.
Kevin Small, Director of Planning.
Lisa Moody, Director of Finance.
Angela Robertson, Economic Development.
Stephen Klein, Director of Public Works.
Chuck Moore, Chief of Police.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And we are going to have one change in the agenda, Mr.
Yes, Madam Chair,
Hopkins.
if I may, under presentation and under my report, I'd like to move Julia Potler under my report up to item 3A and move the Army Alliance to 3B. And then that will delete 4A.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
So we're going to move to amend the agenda as stated by Mr. Hopkins. Could I have a vote on that? Everyone in accordance with that?
Aye.
I'm fine.
All right.
Good.
All right, terrific. In that case, we will start with item 3A, which will be Julia Potler. Give us an update on the Bel Air 150 celebration.
Good evening, all. Julia Potler, Town Events Manager. I did pass out some documents to all the commissioners, and there's one at either end. Just to give you an update, as you know, the Town of Bel Air 150th started technically January, and we're going to run that through December of 2024. So there will be things going on throughout the year. So just a couple things to touch base on, and I'll explain your attachments as we go through this. We have banners hung there on Main Street. There are 26 of them. They have all been sponsored by local businesses, and in one of your attachments, it is on the very back page, lists all of the sponsors in case you're curious to see. The way we operated this is it went through the Downtown Alliance, all payments. Each banner was $250, and it was a straight sponsorship, no revenues were made, and the person who sponsored will be able to take the banner at the end of the year, so it's a keepsake for them. So they are all along Main Street. There are also two large banners, of course, the one right out front, and then one is posted in front of Rockfield Manor. Okay, we had a large banner in the Christmas parade. We will have another one in the 4th of July parade, and again in the Christmas parade in 2024. So that's our update for banners this year. I don't think we'll be having anything else in that regard, but if there's anything that comes up that you think of, just let me know if there's a spot. Then we also purchased pins for staff, for commissioners. I also distributed them to the Downtown Alliance so they can also distribute to their board. We do have some left, so if there's anyone that you think of that you would like to have a pin, just reach out to me. We also have window clings, the little ones that are on the front windows here. They're all over town. The police vehicles have them, Public Works vehicles have them. Again, if there's anywhere else, we do have leftovers that we can get those to. I did send an email out back in early January asking that all town staff commissioners put the little 150 logo on their email signatures, just another way to get the word out that we are celebrating that. If anyone needs those instructions again, just let me know. We are also working on t-shirt designs. That's another thing that's going to funnel through the Downtown Alliance, reason being that they already have a system in place on their website to purchase swag. So we're still working on the designs, but there are a few samples on this second page. We're not sure. Actually, there's probably more that were just recently added since I printed this. But these are just some samples. We're going to have a white shirt and a black shirt and two different design options so that if people want a t-shirt, they have a means of purchasing one in celebration of the year. And again, that would go right through their system. No revenues are made on either end in that regard. We have a backdrop. So if you go to that same page where the logos are, this little yellow item down at the bottom, we do have 2 of them. The Downtown Alliance is going to keep one for the entire year for the sake of putting it up at all of their outdoor events. So anything like First Fridays, Barbecue Bash, Bel Air Markets, possibly summer movie nights if they can find a good spot. And it's also weather determined. If it's too windy, we probably won't be able to put it up. But the point of this is for photo opportunities, social media posts, get some people in front of it and hashtag Bel Air 150 kind of thing. So we also have one. So if there's ever a time that I'm not thinking about that we need this backdrop, reach out to me. It will take a little time to set it up, but we have one. So I will be putting it at the Armory for certain events that take place, such as Garden Mart, events like that. Okay, get back to my notes. Ads, excuse me. We have posted a half-page ad in Hartford's Heart magazine. We did that for the December-January edition so that everyone was aware that January is the start of the 150 celebration. We are also working on another one that will take up the whole center of the calendar of events section in the April-May edition. Again, that's to get the word out about the lighting the town green in April is an initiative we're going to hope that everyone follows with. Businesses, residents, we really want everyone to light the place green to celebrate April. Reason being that April 11th is the inception date for the 150th itself. And we are also hosting an event at the Armory on April 27th. So this is kind of our, our key event that we're doing. That's a special thing for the community to come to. There is a list on the next page in with the green that lists all of the participants. There are about 30, so we'll fill up the Armory very nicely on the whole outer edge and down the center. So the goal with that is to have people bring historic displays, memorabilia, maybe presentations from their organizations that show how they've evolved over the years, so that community can go from booth to booth and just see what the community has been offering to everyone for all this time. And so that ad in Hartford's Heart will also feature that event. So it's right in the calendar of events section. The reason I'm really here tonight is to help you all be aware of the dates you need to save as the commissioners. So April 27th is one of them, and we're hoping that we can have representation at the event. If it's just in like 1 hour time slots, the event runs from 11 to 3 at the Armory, and we can discuss the schedule later, but save the date on that. If there's time that that you can and can't do, we can talk about that. There will also be a concert that follows the event at the Armory at Shamrock Park, weather pending. The concert is being facilitated directly by Bel Air Rec. So they are going to have the Bel Air Community Band and the Bel Air Community Chorus perform back to back, estimate 45 minutes to an hour-long concert. And again, we'd like to have a commissioner at that as well to do opening remarks and that kind of thing. So there are 4 hours at the April 27th Armory event and 1 hour at Shamrock Park. And that's hopefully going to be covered. So that's that event. I'm working on some giveaways. We're going to wait and see how the budget's looking as we move through the year just to make sure that nothing else comes up. But hoping to have something that people that come to these events can take home with them. So if you have thoughts on that, feel free to share, but we're leaning towards an ornament, a ceramic ornament that has the Armory lit in Christmas lights, since we've been doing that for the last few years, and then the Town of Bel Air 150 logo on the back of it. So something that's good and sturdy that'll last a long time. All right, so other notes for that event on April 27th, we've coordinated for the Ma and Pa trolley, and if you've never seen it, I've honestly not seen it in person. I've seen some good pictures and videos of it. The Hartford 250 used it for their celebration, but it is a trolley that has a depiction of the Ma and Pa in it, so people can go inside and look at the depiction there. And then we have 2 fire trucks, historic fire trucks through the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company that are going to be parked in Armory Marketplace. So we'll have to close that lot off for the day, April 27th, so people could just mill about. Also, I've been in discussions with the Lions Club about putting a derby car out there so people can see that. and it's marketing for their event as well. So just trying to use these events to help all the different entities that are doing things throughout the year. All right, 4th of July this year. So we have been told through the grapevine, I don't know if Steve can chime in. You seem to know a little bit about this. No, okay. So apparently we have been asked by the people of the 100th committee that put the time capsule in the Shamrock Park Bandshell to open it on the 4th of July. So that is stated somewhere. I haven't seen it though. Has anybody seen it? Have you seen it?
It's on the plaque.
It's on the plaque. All right. So I haven't been out to see the plaque yet. So that must be where you got that from. So 4th of July will be the day. Steve Klein over here has said we're going to have to get a mason out to preliminarily open it, but make sure it's there, number one, just to make sure we're having a celebration for something. And then 4th of July, the goal is to do it after all of the events that take place in Shamrock Park. So they estimate, I spoke with Mike Blum, chair with the 4th of July committee, and he estimates 12:30-ish that would be able to take place. So this is another big save the date for the commissioners, because this ceremony should probably be commissioner-led, for the town. So again, we can fine tune all those details later, but July 4th around 12:30 or so is where we will all gather in Shamrock Park to open the time capsule. Now the actual plans for that, at the April 27th Armory event, I'm hoping to collect items from a lot of the organizations that come to the Armory and set up a table, hoping that they bring items that they would like to potentially have put in the time capsule. And then over time, we can look through and see what we get and pick as a committee. We do have two committees. We have a staff committee and we have a town committee of people that we can pick and choose, what kinds of things go in the time capsule. So those are the two big dates. And then looking really far ahead is Christmas 2024 celebration, which would be the very end of the Town 150 celebration, since that's the end of 2024. We have put a grant request in through Greater Bel Air Community Foundation to hopefully get a tree planted out in the park to then be dedicated to the 150th celebration. So that would be another event that we would hope that staff and commissioners are in attendance. And that is on December 8th, which is actually a week later this year, because of how Thanksgiving falls. All right. Yes, thank you, Steve. Yes, so light a real tree instead of our string tree. All right, so those are the big key things that we've been working on. Happy to have any feedback. There is still a little bit of budget left, so if there's anything that anyone has ideas on, just reach out to me. Any questions? Okay. Thank you all. All right.
And it's convenient that it falls on the 4th of July and the Christmas parade day, since that'll already be on our calendar. And
Sure.
then we will all have to take a look at 4/27 and hold that for you as well. Thanks for all the hard work. This is quite a bit of activities.
Yes. All right, thank you all.
All right. Next, we're going to have a presentation from the Army Alliance.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I may, while Mr. Ray's making his way. Over the next several work sessions, we will have a number of presentations from significant and unique groups in the community that I could not have done justice for during commission orientation. The Army Alliance being one of them. So over the next several work sessions, we'll see presentations from groups like this. I felt it better to bring them to you one-on-one. They have a little more time to explain their purpose and their history. So that's why Mr. Ray's here today. So Mr. Ray.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm, thank you for having us here tonight. Mike Ray, I'm the president of the Army Alliance and a resident of the town of Bel Air, right on Gordon Street. For those that don't know, the Army Alliance is a nonprofit organization that advocates for the missions and programs and jobs at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Our goal is to sustain and grow the mission of APG. Just about every military installation in the state of Maryland has an organization similar to the Army Alliance, and we are currently a 17-member volunteer board. Denise Carnaggio and Patrick Mellon, two other members of the board, are here as well. We're a trusted source of APG leadership since 1999. And if that was when we led up into the BRAC of 2005. And because of the work we did, APG grew. APG is not a standalone island. There are 160 defense companies in Harford County supporting APG. The last study recently completed by the Maryland Department of Commerce estimated APG directly and indirectly supported over 39,000 jobs, $2.1 billion in employee compensation, with an overall impact of $5.1 million in the state's economy. The civilian workforce of APG draws approximately 70% of their workforce from Harford County, with the largest contingent living in the Bel Air zip code. About 738 government civilians, not counting the contractors, live in the Bel Air zip code. The estimate is maybe 3 times that amount of contractors live in the town of Bel Air. Just, I'm one of the maybe 14 to 2,100 contractors living in the area. It's an accurate statement to say that if APG flourishes, the surrounding communities, economies flourish, to include the town of Bel Air. Not only do the APG residents live in Bel Air, but a large number of the APG civilian contractor workforce is spending their wages at restaurants and retail establishments using services in the town. There may not be another BRAC on the immediate horizon, and for those in it, that's when DOD decides to reorganize things, close Monmouth and send it to APG. But there are hundreds of decisions being made daily by Congress, Department of Defense, and the Army that could have a negative impact on APG and the workforce. For example, defunding of an APG mission or a consolidation or movement of a mission from APG. In late last year, nearly 1,000 contractor positions were eliminated, and there's a high probability someone in the town of Bel Air lost their job. It goes back to the time when we used to see the Ordnance Center and school drop off soldiers at Harford Mall on a weekly basis, and then when the school went to Virginia, that indirect spending to the town was lost. On the other hand, the Alliance is working to have positive impact on APG. More funding being made available to APG or new mission being set up in APG, and it would be great to see those actions resulting in new jobs at APG. Of the 1,000 positions that were I previously mentioned, many were absorbed into new positions, but not all of them. The Alliance is working with APG, county, state, and federal representatives to ensure APG government and contractor workforces continue to grow. There are growth opportunities being pursued right now. Harford County is part of a regional effort to secure additional jobs in biomanufacturing at APG. This is creating items with biomaterials instead of petroleum-based. We are working with the Harford Community College and private sector companies to educate biotechnicians. It's just one component of this opportunity. These positions and others, as a result of efforts to help grow the mission, will provide new opportunities for our children that are in college, high school, and below. This also provides the security that if the government makes the decision that adversely affects residents of the town, there are positions for them. We are also not just looking at today and next week, but 5, 10, and 20 years down the road. We are working with the Discovery Center to allow them to expand beyond their first phase, and with Harford County Public Schools to establish curriculum to benefit our children that will feed APG's workforce. The Army Alliance focus is to ensure APG is recognized as the national asset that it is, and that decisions made by federal and elected officials positively impacts APG. Since our origination in 1999, we estimate we have successfully advocated for over $300 million in projects and facilities that benefit the entire APG community, to including the town. I ask that, on your handouts, there's a link to our website, and you can go there to see our annual report and see all the successes we've had. Why do we need Bel Air to be a supporter? We need your engagement, which means attendance at the 3 sponsorship meetings we hold each year. It's a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner, as well as your financial sponsorship. Not having the town's participation where the majority of APG employees are living leaves a significant gap in our community partnerships that is observed by our federal and state reps and APG leadership. Funding received from all our supporters allows the volunteer board and executive director to gather key initiatives that sustains and grows opportunities for the 90-plus tenants at APG. Some of this work is done with the assistance of organizations that represent the Alliance in Washington, D.C. and Annapolis. Annually, we receive grant and sponsorship money from the state of Maryland, Harford and Cecil counties, and the cities of Aberdeen and Havre de Grace, as well as from defense and non-defense businesses. The town of Bel Air has supported us financially from 2001 until 2022, and we really appreciate that we are afforded the opportunity tonight to speak to you to reestablish our partnership. To wrap up, the Army Alliance would like to respectfully ask the town of Bel Air to engage again with the Army Alliance, a trusted organization, as well as reinstate their sponsorship. Opportunities are ahead for all of us if we work together in partnership. Please join us for our annual luncheon, which is the next upcoming event on 7 March at the Vanderveer Inn. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Hi, Mike. Good to see you.
Yeah.
The question I have is, do you think Bel Air is an attractive location for contractors to come and set up shop? I know
Yes.
we don't have laboratory space, industrial space or whatever, but does your organization get involved in like marketing Bel Air to the contractors and stuff, or?
I would say not directly. It's not like people are coming to the Alliance, but as an organization of volunteers, and many of us are involved in other parts of the community, they come to us and say, hey, do you have an idea where to come? And I can say, absolutely, it's a great place, because my day job was service engineering, and we started, after we left the basement, our office was right across the street.
Right.
So, yeah, there are businesses of 1, 2 people, looking for, hot seat type, environments that are available here in the town. I'd love to have my office here. I could just walk to work.
That works.
It's not going to happen. I'll admit that right up front. I'm not going to.
No, I'm just wondering how we could maybe identify areas or spaces for such things so we can provide them.
I mean, it's definitely something we can work, help with. I mean,
Right.
One of the things that we do every year is we go around to all the APG leadership and say, what are your challenges for the upcoming year? We talk to some industry. What are your challenges? And if we find out about new companies coming into the area, we're all, where can we go? And
Right.
I point out Bel Air all the time because it's where I live.
I know for APG, Bel Air is a favorable area to reside, for the employees to live.
Right.
A lot of people live there, but it's just, now I want to try to get them into the work environment, get some work environment people,
I agree.
workspace done. Okay.
Once you find a space for about 300 people, let me know.
The mall, no.
What was that? Any other questions? And just to give you a bound on sponsorship, between Havre de Grace and the city of Aberdeen, they sponsor between $2,500 and $6,000.
So I don't know what type of technology you're developing, but that was the question that I was going to ask, was where, ballpark relative size sponsors are. So thank you for using that technology to read my mind. I appreciate it.
I wish I could take credit for that one. So, all right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I did, Mike. So, when you were talking about the number of residents that live in Bel Air, were you including the 21015 zip code?
No, just 14.
Just 14.
So 14 is number 1, Aberdeen is number 2, and 15 is number 3.
And those are residents that work in some capacity, that their job is related to either a contractor?
No, that is
or
just government civilians.
just government civilians. Do you have any statistics on those that work for I think you mentioned maybe 130 different?
I wish, it was hard enough trying to get
companies.
those numbers out
Yeah.
of APG.
Yeah.
The number we always hear is somewhere between 2 to 1 and 3 to 1, contractor to government. So if it's 700, you're talking 14 to 2,100 additional contractors working in the area, or living in the area, that work on APG. And the 700 is just on government folks on APG.
So just to reiterate for the greater audience, then, we have 700 people that live inside the town of Bel Air who work directly for the federal government at Aberdeen Proving Ground.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Denise Carnaggio. I'm actually the founding member of the Army Alliance back in 1999, so I am that old. I just wanted to say, we're really looking forward to Bel Air's re-engagement with us. It's so critical. Somebody asked about marketing. At the time, I was working with the Office of Economic Development for Hartford County, Paul and Mary both. And, you know, every time that we did a bus trip with BRAC, I'm talking about BRAC, and you asked about marketing. We brought the buses, every one of them, we toured 4,000 people right down Main Street. This is where people wanted to be. And it wasn't just the folks from New Jersey, it was the people from Virginia, Alabama. Everybody forgets about, it wasn't just Fort Monmouth. There were 8 different areas that we worked with to bring in people into the community. More importantly, we brought the jobs, and the jobs are still here. The one agency that we're talking about is somebody that's been here a long time. And just like the Ordnance Center and school, they can up and leave, and it doesn't take a BRAC. And that's how we were watching the numbers go down at Aberdeen Proving Ground over the years. In economic development, I think like Angela watches every one of your job numbers in each individual business, right? You start seeing those numbers going down, you're gonna have to step in and do something. But clearly, Bel Air was on the top of the list of these folks. Bel Air is on the top of the list for indirect, what you might get here. Apricot Lane, that's down here with Amy, her husband is a general for the activity here. They came because of his job. She set up a business because she loves Bel Air and she wanted to, you know, set up here. Anita Brightman from A Bright Idea started her business because she was doing contracts with the Edgewood area of Aberdeen Proving Ground. She worked for them. She took that knowledge, developed her business. I think, what is she celebrating, 25 years now, and has locations in Bel Air, Sonoma, and I just saw Burbank, California. So, you know, you gotta look at all the things that happen with, you know, having something like an alliance. The alliance is a trusted group by the leadership. The leadership works with us because we're able to navigate the minds in terms of both national level as well as state level and local level. And they trust us to do the right thing. We never, am I right, Mike and Patrick? We never go against what the Army wants. They can't go against their bosses. But as an organization, we pull together the information and do what is right for this community. And it's a region. It's not just Hartford County. It's a region. But Bel Air is at the heart of it, no doubt, when you talk to people. So, thank you. Sorry, Mike.
Nope.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. It's a group presentation.
As Mike introduced, I'm sorry, my name is Patrick Mullen. I am a lifelong Hartford County resident. I grew up in Hartford County. My dad taught at John Carroll for 42 years. Mike's company and the company that I represent, we are probably the 2 largest defense companies that are headquartered in Hartford County. His company employs close to 400 people. The company that I represent, employs about 275. His company's a little different than the one that I represent. We were actually started in New Jersey. We were based out of New Jersey. In 2005, when BRAC was announced, the company moved here. It has grown since from 50 people to 275 over the last 18 years. So that's the type of growth that we're talking about that has come about with APG moving down here, and we want to continue to sustain. We go and talk. I've testified in Annapolis. I know Mike's been down to Annapolis several times, down to DC. We have the channels to get those messages across. We just need the support and assistance of all the community. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat, I see the resemblance.
I was going to say, I remember Mr. Mullen from
Yeah,
John
me-
Carroll, and he was my guidance counselor. So I thought you looked familiar, and the name rang a bell. So now I know why. All right. Well, thank you for coming this evening. All right. Next on our agenda is moving through the tentative agenda for the town meeting. The first item will be a presentation for the
Actually,
promotion of Sophia.
Did you want me to do my report first, ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said that was off the list.
No,
Number
it's
4
my-
we'd
my
skip.
report,
In that
just
case, go ahead.
3A was off the list.
All right, 3A was off the list.
3's still there.
I'm sorry, Mr.
No,
Hopkins,
no,
go ahead.
No problem, no, it's all good, it's all good. See, I couldn't have actually done as well as Mike in an orientation. He did a great job, so thank you. Just a couple of things, Madam Chair, that I just wanted to circle back and on some issues you wanted me to follow up on. The majority of this stuff will be covered by staff tonight. But one of the things that you had asked us to monitor was the liquor board hearing. You and the other commissioners had concerns about whether or not it would come off successfully and be disruptive, and it was a successful event
Great.
and not disruptive. I spoke with Ms. Moody at least 3 times that day to make sure there was no confluence with her staff and with window traffic, and there was not. There was no confluence with administration window traffic. And to Commissioner Rutledge's question, the audio system was a closed loop, so there was no chance of any software they would use that would impact our service. So they have one more hearing later next month, I believe. I don't anticipate any problems, although I will acknowledge they went pretty much 12 hours that day. Wow. So it was a long day for them, but it was a very well-controlled meeting. Commissioner Chance and others had brought to our attention some issues going on with Rockfield, most notably that a lot of people are not practicing dog retention, and their dogs are running off leash. That combined with, we were also looking at some issues with potential issues for slips, trips, and falls and using the park after dusk. So Director Small, Director Klein, and I have been talking about this. We are going to work on new signage. I don't know that the signage will have any effect whatsoever because there's signs there now and people aren't paying attention to them. But newer signs, more vibrant signs may give us a little more teeth, if you will, to get the dogs back on leash. So that's our hope. But we are working on that in case you get complaints. Some other citizens' complaints that I know you and I, Madam Chair, spoke over the weekend. Some of the weather this past several weeks have been pretty hard on our roadways in town, most notably the state roads, not the town roads, as bad. We are in the process of working with SHA, who did fix several issues that you brought to my attention and others that we found on our own. But they're temporary until they decide to fix them more permanently, but they're less of a nuisance than they were 5 days ago. We also had some similar complaints about some pedestrian crossings, most notably the crosswalk at 22 and Baltimore, no, excuse me, not 22, yes, 22 and Main Street. We have a notification into SHA. I believe Commissioner Taylor, you were copied on that email earlier today. We've already notified SHA both on their online ticket system, and we've made a call to their offices as well. The
What was the issue with that?
crosswalk not functioning properly,
functioning.
not allowing citizens to cross, I believe, from the 220 what county office building to the Charm City side, I believe.
Okay.
We continue to get reminders from citizens who are viewing us on live streaming that people who are operating on the dais, not necessarily commissioners, are not using the microphones appropriately. So I don't know how to fix this problem. I mean, sometimes I think people who sit up here would be insulted if I tell them to talk into the mic, but if they don't talk into the mic like I'm doing, you can't be heard. These are not omnidirectional. Most of our meetings are discussion meetings where the board, you turn your head left and right and people are talking and the sound travels back and forth. It does not come across clearly. I don't know how to fix that problem other than to have all of my staff and have you as commissioner liaisons to these groups to remind the various groups when they speak, they have to speak into the microphone because they're not being heard. There is a misnomer on YouTube that people believe that that's the historical record. We know that's not accurate. The minutes are the historical record. So, but I do care that our citizens hear what we're talking about, as I'm sure you all do as well. So just a reminder. And then lastly, Commissioner, or rather Chair, and you were part of the commission last year when we talked about trying to get MOUs. It's taken Ms. Thompson and myself about 10 months, maybe almost 12, to pull MOUs together and tweak the language so that it's appropriate, and we've covered all the possible bases. So it's entirely possible as Ms. Potler begins to send these out with various groups that are using town services, which the MOU addresses, you may get questions, what is this new process and procedure? As you and I have discussed often, I needed a consistent, form of how we do business with everyone. So everyone operates from the same playbook, from the same schedule of events, everything from what fees we charge, what services we provide, what fees we'll waive, what we can't waive, and the list goes on and on. As you can imagine, writing an MOU like that took some time. And unfortunately, some of our groups are unique that we had to write MOUs specific to them. The other groups that aren't necessarily unique, we can use a template MOU. So it took us, Liz and I, the better part of a year. Unfortunately, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, but I think we're there now. My point to that dissertation is that you very well may get questions from the various groups as to what we're doing and why is this so significant, why the legal mumbo jumbo, basically so that we provide optimal services and we're consistently treating everyone the same across the board. So with that, ma'am, I'll turn back. Thank you.
Well, just to comment on a few things that you said, I've gotten some feedback from folks that have listened to the commissioners' board meetings, and I haven't really heard any complaints as far as us being able to be heard.
Yes, ma'am.
But I would not be offended at all if somebody reminded me that my mic was off or that I was not speaking into the mic. I would prefer to be reminded till it becomes a habit, and I certainly would think that everybody should remind their boards maybe, you know, before the meeting starts to remember to speak into the microphone. It is important. It's not the historical record. Those are the minutes. But for folks that are at home and want to be able to hear what's going on, I think it's important that we, you know, keep at it until we get it right. And I think just a little bit more effort would help. Thank you so much for the update on the State Highways Administration, taking care of some potholes. I have had 0 complaints about any town roads. Mr. Klein, tip of the hat to you. But the weather has been tough, and I know State Highways really can't do a permanent repair till the weather is better. They have problems. They do temporary repairs, I think, in the cold and the wet, but they really have to wait till the weather breaks. So,
Madam Chair, just to let you know what our procedure is with regard to potholes in town. Most Mondays and Fridays are spent by our streets crews driving every street in town looking for them and proactively filling them before they become a nuisance. So I just wanted to let you know we take great pride in to prevent them before they get too big and cause injury to people's cars. So.
and you seem to be doing a great job because I've had 0 complaints about potholes or road conditions in the town. So, all right, I think we're finished with number 4 now. All right, and we're moving on to number 5.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Would this be an appropriate time for me to just ask a follow-up question as to the substance of the town administrator's presentation? Sure. Just, so, in addition to more signage with regard to dogs running on the loose, what are our enforcement options there? What's been the practice in the past? What are the, is this like just a person who's, threatened by a dog just has to file a complaint, or what do we do as a town? What's to enforce these rules?
I can add to that, Town Administrator and Commissioner Rutledge. So I did have some input in that communication there, and options include calling the Animal Control, Hartford County Animal Control. They're the primary individuals or group that's responsible for enforcement of dog violations. And we're not totally out of the mix, so let's say that this is something that happens in off hours. So my instructions to Kelly at Rockfield are to say, call the police department. We'll get down there, especially if this is something that could be elevate to a harmful situation. Call us, and we can kind of try to stabilize things until animal control gets there. So yes, so the primary people responsible for enforcement of animal violations is the Hartford County Animal Control. So that was relayed to her.
Well, thank you for that, because
Yes, sir.
I think it's so often the case that I find through my business law practice that people have perceptions as to who an authority figure is that they should go to, and the reality is not the same. So pointing out that it is Hartford County Animal Control, that's their primary responsibility, that's very helpful to me, I'm sure is helpful to other people who encounter those situations.
And I think, since we are on YouTube now, it's a good message to get out there that they are very diligent in enforcing the laws, and they will be cited if those animals are not on a leash. They will be cited. I've seen it time and time again. They come out, they're responsive during normal hours, and if we have to come out when they're not around, if the police department does, we do a report, and we get that information to them, and they're cited. It's positive enforcement. So I think once we get these signs done,
and, maybe make a few examples, we won't have that problem anymore.
Well, thank you very
Yes,
much,
sir.
and
Yep,
thank you for everything you do.
absolutely.
And if your dog is off a leash and does not have a license, there will be an additional citation issued, as I have seen in the past.
Well, in that light, should we put something on our website, at least about
I think
stepped up enforcement because of,
I think, was there something put on Facebook or social media about this? We
certainly
can
think
take care of
that's-
that.
I
Yeah,
think
mean,
that's
just
worth
to let people
considering.
know, and,
Yep,
ahead
yes,
of
sir, I think it's a
time,
good idea.
One of those reminders.
Right,
In
just
a,
a
in a
reminder.
different forum.
Yep.
Please keep your dog on a leash.
Want to make sure people are aware before things get really rough.
That is true.
Good
It's okay,
point, Commissioner Taylor.
The chief will take a bite out of crime, for sure.
So they'll take a bite out of him.
Yes.
I wish I was that creative.
All right. Number 5 on our agenda, there will be presentations at our meeting on Monday, February the 5th. One will be the promotion of Sophia Whiteside to Police Communications Operator 2.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we're going to ask you to recognize police dispatcher Sophie Whiteside, who's being promoted to PCO2, and PCO stands for Police Communications Operator. She's a very valuable part of our team. She started, even through her education, she's gotten honors, but she started as an explorer in 2014, and she remained an explorer until 2021. Elevated her interest in policing and asked to be a dispatcher. She started as a part-time dispatcher in 2021, and she's done a great job. She's gotten her CN1 certification, and we're going to present her certificate of promotion, have a small ceremony for her afterwards. Her family will be in attendance, and we'll have a bio prepared for you. So it makes it a lot easier.
I think I've already been provided the bio. It's pretty impressive. She looks like a really great, person to have working for you, and it was really impressive. One question I had was, this came up yesterday when we were talking to the scouts. How old do you have to be in the Police Explorers group? Do you know?
It's 14.
14?
14 to 21.
Okay.
Yep. And it's also on our website if
Okay.
I could be off a little bit, so.
It's a question. I said I thought they looked like high school age when I was talking to the scouts last night, but I'll pass that along to them so they know for sure.
So, ninth grade, I guess that's about right?
Ninth grade would be
Yeah.
about
Mhm.
14.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
All right. And next, we'll have a certificate of appreciation to Joan Suit, our recording secretary who has retired.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joan served the town for approximately 14 years, and we'd like to extend to her the appreciation for all those services and the creation of our historic record in our meeting minutes.
All right.
Okay.
And the last presentation on the 5th will be the recognition of Phil Robb's service to our community. That was canceled. In that case, postponed. All right.
Okay.
And then on unfinished business, we will have ordinance 822-23 repealing and replacing the Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 43, Code of Ethics.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This would be, let's see, we've talked about it. It was introduced back in December. We had the public hearing about it. It is going before the State Ethics Commission on the 1st. So assuming we get a good report from the State Ethics Commission, that would be before you for a vote on Monday the 5th. It's possible the State Ethics Commissions might have some additions or corrections. If so, there's also a chance there could be some last-minute amendments to this. But assuming not, the same ordinance that was been presented to you, and it's been posted on the website now for the last 30-plus days, would be it. So it's a full repeal and replace of the Town Board of Ethics Code of Ethics, and it includes a revised, let's call them the questionnaires, the schedules that everyone has to fill out annually in order to report any of the financial disclosures or potential conflicts of interest. So it is adopting the State Ethics Commission's recommended language fully and incorporating it into our code, which is pretty much required by law with very few to minimal amendments. The one change that is part of that is our boards, committees, and commissions. We're hoping that the state commission approves our request to just have the appointed officials only do gift disclosures on an annual basis versus the 12 to 14 different pages of other financial disclosure questions that
Which include things like what real estate you own and bank
Exactly.
accounts and that kind of thing. I know sometimes
Exactly.
volunteers find that a little intrusive.
And that's the reason why we're asking for that, to hopefully not put anybody off from serving as an appointed official with the town and encourage that by not being too intrusive. So unless there's any questions, it would be before you for a vote on the 5th.
The only question I have is the forms or questionnaires are going to be part of the statute or not?
They are not incorporated into the code. They are
Good.
not, but I did submit them
Okay.
along with the ordinance so that State Ethics Commission could see the revised questionnaires. They do kind of go hand in hand, but they are not codified.
And I think that's the better way to go. The state does not codify the forms, neither does the county, and that way, should something arise where you need to make a change to clarify something that wasn't working in practice, you don't have to go through public hearings and wait for the legislation to be effective. And it is all driven, of course, by the state model ethics, so I think there'll be no problem with it from the state. And I thank you for all the hard work. I know you've put in a lot of time on this.
Thank you. It is the second time to try to get this passed, and hopefully it passes through the state. And then if you have any last-minute adjustments, feel free to let me know if you have any questions and concerns prior to Monday. But I think we're ready to go.
I think it's much cleaner
Good.
this way to just repeal and replace, so it does track exactly the state's law. So if they have any future changes, it'll be much easier for us to incorporate them.
Thank you.
Mr. Kranz, did you have any comments on the forms from anybody?
I have not.
Okay, so you haven't, so
Yeah.
employees and all, and the volunteer committee members seem to be okay with what's on the forms? What the
Well, I
questions
know
are asking?
historically, our town employees certainly don't enjoy completing the annual
Okay.
financial disclosure form, so, but any poignant concerns, no. I think actually the revised forms, and let's call them the questionnaire, the scheduling questionnaire, the financial disclosures, all those things, I think any gray areas will probably be rectified with the adoption of this new set of schedules.
Okay.
So that should actually improve any questions that we might have had in the past. And it's part of being a local government employee, so you have to be willing and able to disclose those things in order to be a good custodian of the taxpayer dollar. So everyone might not enjoy it, but we do take it seriously.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Krantz about this particular topic? No? All right, in that case, new business, the on-call plumbing contract. I'm assuming this is Mr. Klein?
It is, thank you, thank you. It's actually should be plural. It's two contracts that we're looking to get into with two separate companies. Both companies work for Harford County now and are under contract with Harford County, and we would like to piggyback on those contracts. We have some projects that are coming up in the next fiscal year with some larger plumbing projects. When I say larger, in the $20,000 to $30,000 range. Our procurement requires that if we exceed $25,000, then we would need to either piggyback or bid the projects out. I like having two different companies on hand that we can call upon in case of an emergency. And what happens usually is we tend to start liking one company more than the other. Their pricing might be a little better than the other. So we like to start off with two and go from there. So we feel we've already worked a little bit with each company, J.H. Nitzel out of White Marsh and G.A. Mechanical out of Kingsville. So both we have a separate contract with each company, and hopefully I can get your approval to move forward with that, and then we're a phone call away from having good plumbing service. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Might also be good to have two plumbing contractors, just in case one is busy and there's a
Abs-
lot of emergencies around town due to cold weather or something like that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
We've done the same with other various on-call contractors with electric as well as painting and things of that nature. Hartford County usually has like 3, 4, or 5 companies that they have on hand. Thank you.
Anything further from Mr. Klein on the plumbing contracts? All right. Next will be appointments to the Appearance and Beautification Committee. Mr. Klein, is that you as well?
That is. And as well as Jake. Jake's the liaison now on the committee. And at our last meeting, we realized that we were a little delinquent in reappointing some of the members. So I would like to ask your approval to reappoint 4 of the members at the next meeting. I'm not sure if we go over names at this time. But you know, the people I will just go over: Bonnie Bailey, Jennifer Dombeck, Susan Neuenhouse, and what's the last one there? Elaine Millard. And all have been on the committee for many years. I could just add that we don't have people standing at the door waiting to get onto the committee. I never, in my 24 years working with the committee, have ever seen them turn anyone down from being a member on the committee. So I recommend all 4. They've been a great asset for the town, and they really have a lot of fun doing it, and I think have done a great job enhancing the appearance of the town.
And just to clarify, Steve, on my list here, there were 5 vacancies. Was that there's 1 member not returning? Is that correct?
That is no, because the number of members that the code calls for is 9.
I should clarify. 2 vacancies, 1 pre-existing vacancy,
Yes.
1 member who it looks like is not returning, whose term
Yes.
expired on November 4th. Is that correct?
That is.
Okay, got it.
And just to add, they had made a decision at a meeting in October or November, and when I say they, the committee voted that they would like to change the code to lessen the number of people on that committee, on that board, from 9 to 12 to 7 to 10, just because they've never had a chance to actually get 9 members. And they felt that a much more manageable number would be the minimum of 7 with the maximum of 10, rather than 9 and 12, respectively.
Sure.
Yep. Is there any questions or?
So who are the members that you want to have appointed at the meeting on the 5th?
And these would be reappointments, and they are Bonnie Bailey,
Okay. Okay, I see. All right.
Jennifer Dombeck,
All right.
Elaine Millard, and Susan Neuenhouse.
Okay. All right.
Peg Lucas was just put on last fall, and Christy Sudbrink was put on in 2020, so she has a little time. She has till the end of this year.
Okay. Well, they certainly do a lovely job at keeping Main Street looking great with all those flowers, baskets that they acquire, so. All right.
I want to say it's not just Main Street.
No, it's not
It's
just
a-
Main Street.
When I see Bond Street getting a facelift with flowers, that's really encouraging. Thanks.
So if we reduce you wanted to reduce it to 7 to 10, the number of members on the committee?
Actually, the way it's written right now is the minimum number on the committee should be 9.
Right.
And the maximum shall not exceed 12. They would like to reduce that the minimum number would be 7 and the maximum would be 10.
So does that require a code change?
It does.
It does.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it is in the code or the charter, that's how it's set up.
In the charter? Okay.
Yes. So I will get with Mike and so forth, and we'll figure out how that has to go before you to get that change done.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on appearance and beautification? All right. Appointments to the Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Small, is that you?
I'll defer to Commissioner Rutledge.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm the liaison for the Historic Preservation Commission, and we have 2 terms expiring we have, it's on here as Jennifer Hanna, but many people know her as Jennifer Mainster Hanna, and Brian Payne. And we have, through the help of, Mr. Director Small's office, as well as, and I've spoken directly with Jennifer Mainster Hanna. Both of those have submitted applications to reapply, to continue on with their service. And as should note that these expirations, of their terms are right upon us here in February. So that is appropriate that voting on this would be on the agenda for this coming up regular meeting. We have received both of those. Mr. Krantz has assisted with sharing. If you haven't had a chance to check your emails yet, you'll have the email applications from both of those highly experienced, dedicated servants to this commission. I'd be happy to answer any questions of anybody right now about it. It's been quite a pleasure to be assigned to the liaison and witness their workings now at 2 meetings, and I'm very impressed with their technical knowledge and their depth of caring when dealing with the public.
Anybody have anything further on this one? All right, next we have appointments to the Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens, and I know this is Commissioner Chance.
Yes, if you look at the handout that you received, that you would see that Greg LaClure had been on that board, and his term had expired. And speaking with him, he is more than welcome to continue to serve, not on the board itself, but as an interested citizen, and come to the meetings. And I will be bringing forward to you the name of Karen Winkowski, who has asked to be on the board. And Karen is the director of the Office on Aging and is very well qualified to handle questions that come to that committee and to look at some of the needs of the seniors in the community. And just on a side note, I'd like to say that the committee is doing a lot of work to look at a name for that committee that is more appropriate, I think is the best way to put it. As an elderly person, I prefer not to be called elderly, and many of us prefer not to be called elderly. And needy citizens, well, what does that mean exactly? So we are really looking at the appropriate name for this committee. We'll be bringing that back to you at some point in the near future. But we have a very interested group of individuals that meet with the board who have lots of input from all the way from mental health to the hospital to the fire department, police department here in the town. So they have a lot of work to do, but one of the first things I'd like for us to come up with the correct name for this entity.
So just as a point of clarification, which seat are we filling?
Greg LaCour's
Okay.
seat.
I thought we had, I must have misunderstood. I thought we did that at the last meeting. No? Okay,
No.
got it. All right.
That's all I have.
We hadn't yet received his resignation, so we did not move forward
Right.
with that. So we
I th-
waited to
I
receive.
thought that was
the
Mr.
resignation.
Parrish.
We received Len Parrish's.
Right.
Understood.
Yeah. we
Okay,
did.
I only asked because on here it said that Mr. LaCour's term expired in April of '23.
Mhm.
So I figured, well, he's expired, but I gotcha. All right,
Okay.
I'm with you.
And that will leave the commission with 5 members, which is a full complement.
Correct.
Great.
Maybe underserved citizens. something to think about.
We've looked at that.
Yeah.
I will be bringing back to you maybe some suggestions but there was lots and lots of discussion about what is the proper name for this group. That is not kind of
So off-putting?
Sure.
Yeah, off-putting is probably the right word.
Nobody wants to be a member of those groups, so. All right. Staffing update. Mr. Krantz, is that you? Review the term expiration dates of everyone?
That's me too. Yep.
All right.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As far as staffing, we've recently added on our job postings a accounting clerk for the finance department. So we're now actively accepting applications for that. We are still accepting applications for part-time procurement, as well as I will be posting. I haven't posted it yet, but be on the lookout for a part-time computer network specialist. Al White has been serving the town proudly, and we wish him well in his upcoming retirement. It's not going to be happening until May, but we will be posting that job as well too. There is also a part-time temporary senior planner where we could use some assistance in our planning department. That job has also been posted online, and we're actively accepting applications for that as well. In addition, we just discussed several appointments to the various committees, and I know the Board of Commissioners had asked me to provide a report on a regular basis, so as you were discussing that, I handed around a report of committee positions that are expiring through April to give the board at least 90 days, if not 120 days notice to upcoming potential expirations and upcoming potential appointments that would need to be made. And in addition, I handed out a spreadsheet that has all our boards and committees' names and appointment dates and expiration dates. We're almost done, but not quite. We were able to add Mr. Anderson, our public relations specialist, was able to update with assistance from administrative support and some of the other departments. So every board, committee, and commission now has the member names on the website on their respective page. It also has their appointment expiration dates on those, next to their names on those pages. To make it a little more easier, I think Commissioner Taylor suggested that we have a spreadsheet or a report where you can see everybody all at once. So we're in the process of amending that and adding it to the landing page or the very first page of boards, committees, and commissions on our website. So it's not active at the moment, but it will be active sometime next week, I think.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to say that over the past couple months, between live streaming and that and a number of other things, you have really revolutionized transparency in the town, and we've come a long way in a short time. And I just want to stop to really recognize you and all that you've done on that topic. It's really remarkable.
Well, thank you very much. I can't take the credit for that. It's really having a phenomenal staff and a lot of good people to support the board.
And I wanted to join Commissioner Taylor. That's exactly what I was thinking when Mr. Krantz was describing what we've done with the website, with the help of David Anderson and other staff people. You have come miles as far as the YouTube presence and updating the website is really a lot in a short time. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. If you have any changes to the reports or spreadsheets that you'd like, just let me know, and I'm happy to amend them to meet your needs.
This will be very helpful for everyone to track better openings that are coming up, to inquire if people are still willing to serve and give everyone time to find a replacement if we have a vacancy. So thank you. And next we have the calendar, where I believe Ms. Moody is going to task us with some additional meetings.
It's that time. It will be that time very soon. So I had emailed the commissioners the tentative budget schedule for fiscal year 25. Is there any questions on it, concerns? Anyone not going to be able to attend any of these meetings? I just wanted to make sure that there was a quorum for each one of these.
I think at least 5 of them occur on days when we have either a town board meeting or a work session. So that's helpful, because generally I would hope people would have the time carved out, although it is additional time over and above that. But I have looked at my calendar and I can attend all of them, so I will be here.
Okay. Yeah, there are 2 Thursdays on there and an additional Tuesday, which is not a normal work session. I think there's an extra Monday that throws off the meetings in the month of April. But we do, as has been typical in the past, want to start these at 4:30 instead of 5:15. Especially with the regular work sessions, it really adds a lot of extra time onto our meeting. So that additional 45 minutes is extremely helpful. Anyone else have any concerns? No? Okay. That's not to say that, we can't flex it if we need to, but prefer not to.
I think our homework is assignment for everyone to check our calendars and let you know if you can or cannot make it, so we can at least be assured of a quorum.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, under miscellaneous, permit and restricted parking on Atwood Road and Lester Way, Mr. Small.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The town received a petition from a Mr. Adelsberger on Atwood Road, South Atwood. I sent earlier today, and you may or may not have gotten some of these graphics, but what he's asking to do, and what he actually has talked to all of his neighbors, and they've all signed on to the petition, is to change the permit parking status from Monday through Saturday from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. to make it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So what that does is it basically says, and that's what the petition says, is that only residents can park on that street at any given time. One of the things that was kind of explained to him was that likely this is not someplace that the police parking enforcement regularly patrol. So if somebody sees a car that shouldn't be there, they need to call to make sure that the parking enforcement come by and ticket it. When we looked at that, we discovered that the existing ordinance was shown, we moved the existing ordinance from again, that Monday through Saturday to 7 days a week. We also noticed that the north side of Lester Way was listed as parking by permit, when if you go out there, it's signed as prohibited parking. And it's been, and if you look at the age of the signs, it's been like that for quite some time. So what we also did was, there's 2 different types of resolutions here. One's parking by permit, and the other one is restricted parking. Restricted parking looks at when you can, or how long you can park there, or whether or not you can park there at all. One of the things we noticed with the Atwood Road is it starts, the prohibited parking ends 100 feet from Baltimore Pike. Well, it really actually, if you measure it, it's 200 feet. So there was some parallel parking on what would be the east side of Atwood that is being eliminated. And that would mean that between Baltimore Pike and Western Alley, Winding Alley, would be prohibited parking, and that's when you start the permit parking. And so we are, in the second resolution, we're changing that number from 100 to 200 for Atwood Road. The same thing we saw with Lester Way, which was Lester Way only identified the south side as prohibited parking. What we're proposing is both south and north sides of Lester Way be prohibited for its entire length. And this came out of discussions with DPW because the road is really only about 18 feet wide. And the capability of a car to park there would probably be obstructive to the residents for Wallace Street. So that's what we're proposing. It's relatively minor, but we did want to make sure that we responded back to Mr. Adelsberger.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Small?
So, Mr. Small, so the Atwood is kind of, that's from Thomas Street or from Bolton Street down to the alley?
No, Atwood would be from Baltimore Pike
Baltimore Pike.
to Winding Alley. That would be prohibited parking. And then
Right.
parking, parking by permit would be from Winding Alley all the way to, you can call it George Street, or you can
Or
call it.
George Street.
Or Bolton,
or
whichever,
Right, okay, yeah,
which is
whichever
there.
one, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Lester Way, is that just some cleanup we're doing, or somebody asked for it?
It's cleanup. No, no
Okay.
one asked for it.
No one asked for it?
It's just something that I happened to notice when I was down there associated with looking at development proposals, that the signs were prohibited parking. And so I thought we would try to match the legislation to what signage is out
signage.
there.
And since it's a small road,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Anyone else? All right, moving on, we have discussed safe streets and roads for all the SS4A grant program action plan and public input. Mr. Small.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the 12th of February, and Mike, I have a couple of things that needs to get added to the calendar. I didn't notice it before, sorry. 12th of February is a public input meeting for Safe Streets for All. Safe Streets for All is a federal program where they provide grants to localities to review the various issues associated with any particular, with trying to maintain either minimal injury or no injuries and no fatalities on the roads. So that's what it's typically been called a safe system approach, or a zero deaths approach. The whole idea is to reduce that down. And what the town partnered with Aberdeen and Havre de Grace to acquire a $175,000 grant that would study all three locations. And there will be 3 public input meetings that will occur during that same week. So if you really want to go do some public input for Aberdeen and Havre de Grace, you can. They'll be right after ours. The official, one of the things that does require eventually from this group is an official public commitment or resolution to state an eventual goal of 0 roadway fatalities and serious injuries. And the commitment must include a goal and a timeline for eliminating roadway fatalities and serious injuries achieved through one or both of several items, which is targeting a target date for achieving the 0 roadway fatalities, and an ambitious percentage reduction of roadway fatalities. Now, we've been very lucky. We have not had too many, but this is something where we can leverage these funds to be able to review some of the more difficult intersections that create some problems with visibility or with operational issues or volume of traffic or speed of vehicles. And what I'll do is I'll give you the intersections. One is, and this isn't necessarily an intersection, but it's Courthouse Square or Office and Cortlandt Street at Bond Street. So that is actually the place that I think we have the only pedestrian fatality we've had in a long time, was at that crosswalk leading from, huh? Oh, you just had to tell me that. That one was a big concern because it's just a configuration that is really odd. And we've talked to State Highway about it, but this is something that would measure a lot of the issues associated with traffic and speed. Kenmore Road at South Main Street. This is where Bond Street and turns into Kenmore and then comes back together. This is where a lot of the high school kids cross. And it's, so far I think we've been pretty lucky, but I think that's another intersection. And that was one of the ones that our consultant was like, oh my God, this is not a good place. And of course, they're trying to be pretty ambitious. They're looking at something like what might be a roundabout there. I'm not sure if that's something that's in the cards, but we'll see where that goes. Ellendale Street at North Main Street. This isn't necessarily the Monpaw Trail crossing, but it's near there because Ellendale Street meets North Main Street at an odd angle, and it creates some traffic issues associated with that intersection. Moores Mill Road at Hickory Avenue, Hickory Conowingo, but it's that one has absolutely no pedestrian assistance at all. No crosswalks, no push buttons, nothing. And that's something I think should be somewhat high on our list. Pennsylvania Avenue at Hickory Avenue. That one is, again, another high pedestrian intersection. Lee Street at Hickory Avenue, right there. That is another one that comes together in an odd angle. And it also tends to have high speeds. A lot of people go down Hickory quite fast. And this is the Angela one. Lee Street at North Main Street. She insisted on that one, and I don't blame her. That's one where we're going to have to look at the crosswalk and where it's located and how that's arranged. We have some really poor visibility there from parked cars. Gordon Street at North Main Street. It's Gordon and North Main and Bond coming together. That's another one that kind of is a spaghetti of different pedestrian and vehicles coming together. And then last one is McPhail Road at South Main Street. That is right next to a school, has some pretty high traffic, pedestrian traffic, and we're looking to review those. There are several intersections that you may note that are not on here. Some of them are purposefully off of it because one is, there's several that are part of the county CTP, or Consolidated Transportation Plan. So there's already a proposed improvement on the list of the county, what the county gives the state highway. One of those is the interchange with the bypass, and another one is where Hayes Street or 22 Extended comes back together with US Route 1. That already has been studied before and has some proposed improvements. Some of are subject, again, to those previous studies. We did a study about 6 years ago with the Route 1 and Route 22 corridor. So you won't see any intersections along there because they've already been studied and they already have recommendations. And then last is there are several intersections that have developer improvements pending. And those are, really the number one is Tollgate Road and US 1. So that, while there's not on there, that might come up at the public meeting. But again, public meeting February 12th, 6:30 p.m. at Bel Air Armory. There is a flyer going around. Hopefully you all have seen that. Mm-hmm. There is a QR code attached to that, which takes you straight to a survey. So please encourage people to fill out the surveys. So far, we're number one. We're beating Aberdeen and Havre de Grace. I'm very happy about that. What will happen from there is you'll start to see a draft version of what our consultant is reviewing based on all of the information that they're receiving, public input. They're doing traffic counts. They're looking at crash data. So all of that will come together, and we're looking at trying to finish this out in June of this year. You have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Small, we're doing traffic counts. What about pedestrian counts?
Pedestrian counts are also part of that. That's
okay.
Because especially on the high pedestrian areas, that's something that our code requires. But yes, that'll be part of what they do.
And then, as we go through this process, are we then going to be, someone going to be prioritizing the intersections or things that we'd like to have improvements to, and
This
how does
report
that
will
happen?
hopefully prioritize, because that's one of the items that will be addressed, is they'll create a priority list. Because one of the things we want to do is to be able to apply for an implementation grant from the US DOT. And we need to do that by July of this year. And that's pretty ambitious, but we're going to try for that and see if we can make sure we make the deadline.
So is there some criteria by which, or methodology by which they go and prioritize? Is there some metrics that they use to decide which are the most unsafe, or I don't know what term you want to use, but ones that require the most improvement?
I think a
Or
lot of it
riskiest?
is somewhat subjective. If a lot of the statistics that Chuck's group is providing, again, regarding the number of the big part of what they look at is crash data. If they're but we also, there's a lot of other issues. So you take a lot of those things together, and then it's somewhat, may come down to your opinion as the commissioners to decide which is the highest priority after seeing all of the information. Because you will see a draft version of this report prior to it being finalized.
And the Safe Streets is about both accidents, car on car, or vehicle on vehicle, and vehicle on pedestrian.
And
Both.
vehicle on bikes.
And vehicle on bikes, okay.
One of the
great.
things that our consultant has noted is that we're not a friendly bicycle town. And that's something that they may show as recommendations.
Okay.
I have a couple of comments. So we're really just looking at intersections more than anything else. I want to wish that we were talking about speeding on Main Street, crosswalks, especially crosswalks, and how they're delineated or don't have enough, perhaps, lights to tell people there's a crosswalk here. That seems to me an issue for safe streets.
That's something that we hope to hear on the 12th. If there's feedback that says, okay, the crosswalk down the street here on Hickory next to the parking garage, if that's an issue that comes up several times, that'll be part of their review.
Okay.
One of the things, we can't expand the scope too much, because then we'll start
No,
having to pay out money.
I hear you.
But one of the reasons why it's intersections is that's the conflict area. We do have instances where, and I was sitting out there with our consultant, looking at Route 24 and watching people, instead of going down to the intersection and crossing at the crosswalk, they just take a direct line and cross 24 mid-block. This is Maryland Route 24, an expressway. And I'm not sure what you can do about that.
Yeah. I also have been watching lately people at stop signs. And I had a neighbor say the other day, as she was walking the neighborhood, she said, you know that four-way stop at Roland Place or Roland Avenue and Hall Street? I said, yeah. She said, you know those stop signs, they're really just a suggestion. and I really have been paying attention to stop signs, and they really are. For a lot of people, just going through. It's a suggestion, maybe I should stop, maybe I shouldn't. And Chief, trust me, I'm not saying you guys, I mean, there's no way you could do everything about all that, but I thought that was a pretty well-stated observation, that they were only a suggestion.
Right.
One of the things that we've noticed is a lot of people who have cars that they perceive as speeding down their street, they want a stop sign. And that doesn't control speed.
Yeah.
People will just ignore it. There's many other ways to control speed. And I would assume that Chuck would agree. And I think that's where we're going to be looking at some creative ways to try to address some of the issues conflicts between pedestrians and vehicles, and especially in our downtown area.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one thing that, if we could just, and I know a lot of our roads are state roads, just paint the crosswalks. I mean, they're so faded, and you don't even know that they're even there.
We've made several requests, and we will
That's what
still
I've
keep
heard,
on
yes.
making them.
That's funny you say that. At Baltimore Pike, right there, where Bond meets, it took us a long time to get the stop line painted there, because what was happening is people were getting the tickets because they were going up to the crosswalk line, and because the stop line
Right.
was faded, but we finally got that done. Yeah.
And I know that it kind of looks nice when you're walking, the brick, the faux brick crosswalks, but they're not very, they don't stand out very well.
No.
You know, so.
And I think the state highway doesn't use the ones that are pressed concrete, pressed asphalt anymore, because when you do a patch, you can't put the patch back in. I think Steve
Right.
has said that several times. So you're gonna see something, if anything happens where it's a decorative crosswalk, like, it'll look like, the one at Lee and Main.
Lee and, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Do you have any idea, like how many of these kinds of accidents, fatals or serious, that we've had in the last year, 5 years? Pick whatever you used for the grant.
So-
Steve probably, or Chuck would probably know better than I would.
Tragically, we just had one recently, 24 at Marketplace, but before that, I mean, we go all the way back to, I believe it was 2017, 18, and that was right there at the courthouse, right there at Office and Cortlandt Street. So that's one of the, and that's, I think that is a problem area that we need to look at. There's two crosswalks right near each other, and maybe one of those needs to go away, or somebody needs to look at that, figure out what kind of engineering can be done there to kind of fix that problem. There's a lot of people always crossing right there, and I just think it's confusing for the motorists to have two of them so close, and the pedestrians, to have two of them so close together there.
And Chuck, so as my office is at the
Yeah.
corner of Office and Bond, generally, just so you know, the staff that at Stark and Keenan park in the Bond and Thomas Street lots, we have parking permits, and they walk those intersections, those crosswalks. So we refer to that as the triangle of death. And we identified part of the issue, and part of the issue is that you have people coming out on Thomas, and they're looking north on Bond, and you're trying to cross at that crosswalk to get to the courthouse, and they're not looking,
Looking in that
they're just
direction.
hitting the gas and going like, okay, it's clear. The other part is that we've had to my knowledge, 3 people hit in the crosswalk at Thomas Street and Bond Street, not seriously injured. But they were crossing there, and the people were looking north on Bond Street, and they hit the gas again, not looking to the right. So it is a tricky intersection. You guys are gonna have your work cut out for you on that one. So I just want to point that out, because that is a constant issue, and I've talked to Chuck many times with his guys that come out there, because they also run the light. So you've got 2 crosswalks, a directional traffic going one way, people running the red light, and it's a recipe for disaster. So, just gives you background.
Both state and county are part of this committee that's reviewing, and especially state, SHA's job is to move cars. It's not to slow them down. And they take that very seriously. So we're trying to make sure that they are very aware of some of the feedback that we're getting, and some of the data that we're seeing.
Pedestrians notwithstanding.
Yeah.
All right. Anything more on Safe Streets? All right, next we have amending the Bel Air Town Code, Chapter 165, Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulations, Part 2, Zoning, Article 2, Administration Enforcement, Section 165-21, Annual Growth Report, Adequacy Standards, Section 165-21B1A and 165-21B1B, Adequacy Standards, the minimal acceptable level of service and preliminary approval. This is the amending the section of the code that has to do with schools, and what I think we should do at this point is introduce the legislation to just delete the abutting language and leave the number 100%, 110% for further review.
But, Commissioner Rutledge, weren't you proposing another amendment? An amendment to that?
I have,
Or-
with a lot of help, put together a proposed piece of legislation that is going to be reviewed by the Planning Commission this week on their agenda on February the 1st.
Okay.
And so it wasn't an amendment of anything that is existing, because all of the initial, that initial bill has expired. So it will, essentially, Madam Chair and members of the commission, what I'm proposing in a nutshell in that, and is that the abutting language would be deleted from the adequate public facilities statute with regard to the school capacity issue. And my proposed legislation does not change or alter the current standard of capacity.
So it stays at 110?
It would, yes, my
Right.
bill doesn't touch the 110.
Okay.
The purpose of that is to be able to say, look, you know, we need to move legislation, in my opinion, that makes it clear that we're focusing on adequate public facilities within the town of Bel Air. And that, from my viewpoint, the changes on the percentage, while there could be a lot of merit to that, I think warrants study, and certainly I would welcome anybody to put together a piece of legislation for the Planning Commission to review on that topic specifically. But one of the things that my legislation does that is different than anything that's been proposed is that I have a carve-out in that, specifically with using specific metrics for a carve-out for certain projects that had been filed relying upon the existing law and moved far enough along the process in the development process where there's been a very substantial and significant investment in that. And so when you take a look at what's coming up for the Planning Commission, and on Thursday evening you'll be able, and it's up in public record, it's on the website, and you'll see the different metrics that I've proposed. And so in other words, a project that has already gone to a hearing at some substantive level, already advanced that project during 2023 or before, and if that project moves promptly through the process in 2024 to come to some type of final approvals in the summer of 2024, and then is able to check all the boxes and have everything lined up to pull a building permit by mid-November of 2024, then that project would be not affected by my proposed legislation. The essential idea there is that it grants substantial consideration to a concept of estoppel, where you say, look, these projects relied upon the existing law and spent a boatload of money, time, and effort getting there, but they can't just linger on that. They couldn't just say, well, they're going to be exempt from the change in the adequate public facilities statute, forever, if they, in good faith, are moving their project forward. They've had their hearings. They've had denials or acceptances at different levels of the Board of Appeals, as well as potentially with the Planning Commission as well. And then if they move their project forward and to the point of a building permit by November, and they had gotten their final approvals in place by the end of July of this year. That's what I am proposing for consideration and input on, and I'm putting that before the Planning Commission for their input this week. Depending upon what their input is and when they get that feedback to me on it is then I would be looking at actually making a presentation for the reception of a proposed ordinance. And
So-
I'd be happy to answer any questions of the commission, you know, on that idea that I'm moving forward with.
All right, so the timeline for that would be, we have to wait for the planning commission first to give us their feedback.
Yeah, that is what that's my intent, is to say, look, you know, we've got a planning commission process in place, and to let them comment on that. Here, you know, see the language, so care was taken to actually be able to present to them, not just an idea, but a legislative form that could actually become the proposed bill formally, and with my intent to propose that bill, unless there's, you know, good feedback, you know, that I may want to, you know, change that before I propose it. But I wanted to get that before the Planning Commission, and invite their comment and participation on that.
So, Madam Chair, the Planning Commission received Commissioner Rutledge's proposed amendment to 81323 as an amendment, because at the time, the 4 ordinances were still technically moving forward, and you guys could have acted on them. They'd expired January 19th. So they're presented as an amendment, but since 81323 is dead, it would have to be reintroduced by the board, and the process reinitiated. The only issue of, you know, sort of check the box is the Planning Commission, unless a substantive change to the language or the theory behind Commissioner Rutledge's legislation is altered. I'd say that the satisfaction of the Planning Commission's recommendations has already been met on Thursday. And it's my understanding you wanted to present to the Planning Commission and be available for questions.
I will be present, and I will, you know, present my idea and be there available for their questions. Yes, I will.
I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you have any other questions?
My other question is, are they still going to render their opinion on the 4 ordinances that were originally sent over?
It is my understanding that they will. They want to be able to give you guys some feedback, considering your ideas, because, you know, they believe that the board may want to introduce some legislation, and I hope that you will take their recommendations into consideration.
Thank you.
Sure.
Madam Chair, so this was just this item C, 8C here that we were talking about, that was just basically looking at
The same,
a potential, a reintroduction of
Correct.
the original one, but
correct,
but not reducing it from 100 to
Correct.
100, keeping it at 110.
correct.
Okay.
To leave
Without
that
the
for some
timelines,
further
right.
evaluation.
Correct. And now, Commissioner Rutledge was just talking about Maryland is not an estoppel state, right? It is a late vestiture state, correct?
That is correct. Maryland law does not recognize what is known as zoning estoppel. It has a vesting test as substantial construction.
And that's a substantial construction, which is
Well, yes.
like building permit and post-building permit.
Generally, the theory of substantial construction, and it would vary case to case, but number one, building permits have to be issued by the governing authority. So you can't start digging in the ground and putting a foundation in without
Right.
building permits and then say, aha, I got you, I'm vested. So you would have to get building permits. And then it would be a case-by-case basis. But the general rule is that once they start digging and laying foundations, they are now vested.
Correct.
Because you can't have someone build a 4-story building and then say, aha, I got you, and pull the rug out. Does that help?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, okay. No, I just wanted to be, that's what I thought it was. I just wanted to be clear that that's what it
Certainly.
actually is.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't necessarily have to put these gates in, as Commissioner Rutledge was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, if I may speak to that, my proposal is certainly not made because I think the law requires it to be there. My proposal on those exceptions, that small carve out with a limited with an expiration date on it, is based upon just my view of what would be sound public policy and a wise course for the town of Bel Air to take and for this commission to take, and be able to lay down the rule moving forward. You can't count on what's going on in the county schools. It is going to be Bel Air schools only, and from just a public policy standpoint, not saying binding on any future decisions. It's just after some deliberation on the topic, I'm proposing a concept that would make a carve out for those projects that met certain criteria before this law came into effect, if they continue to promptly move on their project without delay. So that way a project couldn't say, well, I had a hearing in 2023, I want to sell my project to somebody else that might not really want to move forward with something until 2025. So I'm putting an end date on that opportunity to not be retroactively affected by the change in the abutting language on it. So it has nothing to do with legal requirements in my view whatsoever. This is strictly a legislative proposal.
I think the way I took it, Jim, when you said estoppel, was not necessarily zoning estoppel. It was more of a general, they've invested. I took it this way, invested into it, so you didn't want to just pull the rug. He doesn't want to just pull the rug out from under them.
There's a time-honored principle in the law of the ancient law that this state was based upon, which recognizes certain equitable principles, and even though our highest court, it sets rules on these things and has not adopted a perspective that has adopted strictly looking at pure equity, but has looked at the police powers of municipalities, et cetera, and giving heavy weight to that. But in our tradition, taking into consideration people relying upon the circumstances of the moment and making heavy investments does, in my view, warrant some equitable weight. And so when I use the word estoppel, I mean it in the terms of the old-fashioned, just weighing the equities and the fairness of a situation, if that helps.
I have a question directed probably both at Mr. Small and Ms. Thompson. I understand that the Planning Commission will be rendering substantive opinions on the expired ordinances. Do you have any sense of where they are, maybe when they receive Mr. Rutledge's amendment, or what they'll have to say about it, or is that just a first look tomorrow?
That is a first look.
Okay.
To my knowledge, Kevin. That was sent probably.
That was sent last Thursday
Okay.
to them.
Got
Usually
it.
gets to them a week before their meeting.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 Anything else? Okay. Next, we've got discuss ordinance 823-24, amending the Town of Bel Air, Maryland Code, Chapter 10, Boards, Commissions, and Committees, Article 5, Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens. Commissioner Chance, is this you?
I really don't have any additional information.
Other than our prior discussion, so you'll be working on some suggestions for a name a better name. All right.
I'm sorry, I didn't have my mic on. I don't have anything additional at this time, and I will be back in touch with you when we have more information from the committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance.
And just for the record, you can remove the ordinance number 823-24. We'll go ahead and put that back into service if we need another ordinance prior to that. We'll
All
leave
right.
this one as pending.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. All right, next we have Governor Moore's 2024 housing package. I think I shared with everybody what I had received from MML. One was about a 9-page summary of the governor's package, and then the draft bills. As far as I know, I did not check today, but the last time I checked, they didn't have housing. They didn't have bill numbers, but it looks like now they do have bill numbers. So they've been introduced. All right, thank you for adding the bill numbers. It'll be much easier to find them on the legislative page. The first one, the Housing Community Development Financing Act, I think is probably nothing that we would necessarily care to take a position on, because it's the state setting up a financing entity to provide funds for certain types of housing. The Renters' Rights Stabilization Act, I would say that the same thing. They'll probably get plenty of input from the landlord community. But the last one, which is the Housing Expansion and Affordability Act, I think we should take a look at and consider taking a position on. It's going to do a number of things, one of which is to exempt certain housing from adequate public facilities entirely. So you wouldn't be able to deny a permit on the basis of overcrowded schools. I don't see how the state can, on the one hand, tell us we should be sure that there are adequate public facilities for the traffic that's going to come from any particular housing development, or that the students that are going to come from a housing development and go to our schools, and on the other hand, tell us, well, in these certain circumstances, it's not going to apply. It's really interfering. They have the right to do it. We only have the power that the state gives us. But to be so micromanaging on such a local level, I think it's something that none of the municipalities or counties are going to necessarily be a big fan of, and it's certainly a change from everything that we've done up until this point. There are other things as far as giving density bonuses only to certain organizations, providing that the housing meets certain criteria. You will be able to put what's called middle housing in areas zoned strictly for single family, which means in some affordable neighborhood. And I think of the town of Bel Air as the more affordable place to live when I look outside the town and see what housing prices are. Howard Park, I think, is very affordable. We have a number of very affordable townhouses, but you would be able to take down some single family homes and put up cottage housing, which qualifies as a middle housing option. It has to be at least 4 units of less than 900 square feet each. And you could take down enough single family homes or build on a single family lot, that kind of a thing, and plunk it down sort of in the middle of an existing neighborhood. It just seems to be a very odd way to try to increase affordable housing. So at any rate, there are a number of things that the bills do. I'm not sure, the last time I looked, MML had not taken a position, nor had MACO, but the press reported that MACO was supporting with a 15-year sunset clause, which is awfully far off in the future, and it may never sunset. It may be reintroduced. So I think I have heard from Northeast, and the mayor of Northeast spoke to their planning administrator, and they are opposed to this bill. I personally am opposed to this bill because it just upends all the zoning rules that we have and takes all of the power away from the local jurisdiction and invests it in the state down in Annapolis, where they don't really have their eye on the localities and know what the details are. I'd like us to consider whether we want to take a position as a board and pass a resolution, which we could forward to MML, we could forward to the legislature, and one of us could testify when the hearings are held, although I need to check the website to see when they're going to be. I thought it was very odd, actually, that this package because it was the sort of the crown jewel of the governor's legislative session this year, why it wasn't pre-filed. And there was nothing available until very recently. And I'm a little concerned if we don't act quickly, we will not have an opportunity to take any position on it.
Didn't this legislation, when I read it, didn't it also get rid of it overrode our density issue?
Yes, yes, there are
That they
density
can-
bonuses
density
for certain
bonuses.
properties if they're owned by 501c3 organizations. There's, it's a lot of details, but yes, it does override our density rules.
And I thought it also stated in there that you can put in high-density housing in in areas zoned for single-family?
I saw middle housing in areas zoned for
it's just-
single family.
They talk about mobile homes, and
Yes,
they talk
mobile
about, well, they
homes.
call them manufactured housing.
Manufactured
that's
housing.
But it
about
has
right.
to has a chassis in the definition. I looked at the definition because I thought maybe they were talking about modular housing, housing that's built in sections off-site and then assembled, as opposed to stick-built on-site. But they're actually talking about mobile homes being permitted in single-family.
And middle housing is somewhat of a new term.
Yes, I
looking
had to look at the definition. It was like duplexes, triplexes,
right.
triplexes.
Duplexes, triplexes,
and this-
quadplexes,
and
the
cottage.
cottage housing and townhouses.
Yes, and I had to
That-
look up cottage housing because to
And
me
that-
it meant something different, but it's at least 4 units of 900 square feet or less. So you could have, 20, I guess, and
Right now, what qualifies some of these projects probably wouldn't be in the town of Bel Air, but my biggest fear is what happens to it as it goes through the legislative process. When they start to add amendments to it, and, most of the stuff, historic state-owned campuses, anything within 1 mile of a passenger rail station.
Right, we don't have any rail stations.
501c3 organizations, all those things really don't quite qualify for Bel Air, but I'm just worried about them expanding what that definition is. And it could become very problematic for the single-family neighborhood, the R1 district.
The R1 district.
Yeah,
Right.
so, yeah.
That was the issue.
I appreciate that, Director Smollett. So I took some time carefully going through that statute and parsing out exactly where they were coming in and depriving the municipality of its zoning authority. And they do have this one set of the law talking about a qualified project, but then they shift gears in it and they make some changes that have nothing to do with a qualified project. That was my concern. So clearly, if my reading of it is correct, it certainly would say, look, when we have in, our R1, our single-family zoning, and if someone wants to come in with a low income supported project, that type of housing, they have a definition there on it that a person could, the way I read it, a person could buy a single family home, maybe buy a couple of them beside each other, then they can come in and
Right.
say, you know what, your zoning law cannot prevent me from just demoing these, ignoring the property lines, building townhouses, quadruplex,
Whatever.
whatever they want to, so long as they had 50% of the project
As
was
affordable
under
housing.
the income qualification standards. So my concern, if that it turns out to be really what the power turns out to be, then wherever we have in our zoning the single-family home allowed, it just completely rewrites our zoning statute and basically takes it out of the hands of the locality to
Right.
be able to regulate any of that from a zoning standpoint. That was a big concern of mine, which I'm having a hard time seeing from just an economics theory standpoint on how what they're proposing meets the goal of really changing the community, because there can be a lot of money made in developing projects that qualify for low income, and what could happen is there could become a bidding war for the basic single-family homes that would distort the economy and actually run up the pricing and make it very difficult for anybody to buy. So you could just have an inflationary effect here. And I don't think that the drafters of this legislation necessarily care about the deep thinking on that type of economic adverse impact and distortion that they could cause. I'm certainly all for making sure that people can afford to buy homes, but completely ignoring the investment that people have already made in their own homes and their own community is really punishing people for getting in a long time ago in the market when Bel Air was even more affordable.
I think that what you're going to see is that it's not going to stop here. If this gets passed, they will go back in and they will fiddle with it, and it'll expand, and it'll keep. And one of my big concerns is go down to College Park.
Mhm.
That's what you're going to have, where you're going to have all of these high density developments that are developed on one single family lot or two single family lots that are next to each other, and it kind of tears up the neighborhood.
Right.
Because then typically what happens is people may buy them and then they'll become rentals, and everything becomes transient and the neighborhood falls apart. Now the town does allow some middle housing, but not townhomes in the R1 district. So those are the kind of things that I think that are problematic.
Right. And this is another, one-size-fits-all type of law, and it doesn't. There's different communities throughout the state, and that's why we all have different zoning rules, okay? Because of the demands in that area, and this is just a one-size-fits-all approach. It may work for Baltimore City, it may work for other communities, but I just don't think taking this out of our hands and our zoning isn't anywhere near like what they're talking about doing here, so this is too much of a change. I don't think we should be. I think we should
My
stand
concern
against
is that it's going to really destroy our neighborhoods, which are our strength, our, Homestead Village, Major's Choice, Howard Park. They're all fairly reasonable as far as the cost of the houses. I know it doesn't seem that way if you're just out of college and trying to buy one, but it's not the price of a Glen Angus or a Forest Hill home on an acre. It is much more affordable, and I think our town is really at risk for a huge sea change. And I don't think that the folks that live in our town and that have, there was one gentleman that came and said, he worked hard and he managed to buy a single family home in the town of Bel Air and, raised his kids. And I don't think those people know this is coming, and I definitely don't think that they would appreciate what it would do to their neighborhoods.
I have not reached out to MML yet, but that might be something that.
I had reached out to MML, and that's how I got this material. But I'm already, there's been a lot of work done behind the scenes, I believe, because the Banner did report that MACO was supporting with a 15-year. Yeah. So, and I reached out to, when we had the Cecil Harford meeting, I talked to a couple of people there, and I sent the material that I got from ML. It was very difficult to locate. The bills haven't been introduced. None of the newspaper articles had any links to the governor's 9-page summary or the proposed bills. But there was a lot of talk about them, but it was very difficult to locate. MML had them and sent them to me, and I forwarded them through Mike Klein to the entire membership of the Harford Cecil group. But I'm going to reach out to the municipalities in Harford and Cecil individually to see what their position is. Some of them aren't bothered by it, or some sections of it, too much, because in Aberdeen, they have a rail station, but they already have that kind of high-density housing around the rail station. It's zoned for that. They plan for that. That's what they're doing. But I want to reach out to some of the other jurisdictions and see what they plan to do. I'd like to know what the county plans to do what position they're going to take, because I just don't see a lot of support for this from any of the counties or the municipalities, but that doesn't mean that MML and MACO won't support it. They have a legislative committee. They do not survey their membership. And MACO's different because every county has membership on their legislative committee, but MML, because there's 157 municipalities, can't do that. But they don't take a survey of the municipalities to see what their position is. And I think this has probably, I'm concerned it's going to really sail through quickly without anybody really have much of an opportunity to oppose it. I don't even know how you plan for anything. How do you do school projections when you think it's a single-family neighborhood and then it turns out to be something else?
You can't. We're front and center, though, with the state-owned property with the Mary Risto building.
Correct.
And, lots of people have been, brainstorming, hey, what would be great there? Everything from, will the county keep it? Will they surplus it to the town? What different opportunities will be turned over to the private sector?
Correct.
All of these things, the way that is state-owned property, and that, no matter which way it goes, would be eligible for the, whatever type of high density, there, and they allow them to do the override on the density or the heights by 30%.
Right.
So, if you've got, a 60-foot limit, then welcome to 90 feet.
Right. And they wouldn't have to be concerned with how many students that would be.
Oh, totally.
producing
No,
for a
that's,
school.
no, you cannot, they do not allow that to stand in the way, even as a delay, at all until the schools catch up, at least, like we were talking about our school APF removing the abutting, at least we can see right now, you can see the elementary school being built, you can see the concrete rising up. There's going to be changes in school capacity based on when we get this other school online, if the board will shift some things around. But no, none of that's going to matter whatsoever under this bill. There'll be, and we're talking with Director Klein about, having to plan ahead on stormwater management, et cetera. So the whole idea that in Maryland we are concerned about making sure that we have plenty of pervious surfaces and we're looking out for the Chesapeake Bay is completely contradicted by this pedal to the metal, there's no limitation type of legislation that this is on development and the impacts that it can have on not just sewer and water, but stormwater management, runoff. All that seems to be completely unimportant. And the environmental concerns that I'm very sympathetic with regard to the Chesapeake Bay are not at all on the radar out of this governor on this bill. It's like, forget it. Doesn't matter. What matters is get all of the counties and get the municipalities out of the way on zoning restrictions to allow
We're going to build.
build.
Just as an informational note to the commission, it looks like HB 538 and HB 599 are scheduled before the House Energy and Transportation Committee for February 20th. The last bill has not been scheduled in the House, and none of the Senate cross files have been scheduled for a committee hearing yet.
Thank you. That's very useful
Thank you.
information.
So I'm totally in support of whatever resolution, et cetera, that Madam Chair, that you wish to put together to express ourselves. I appreciate the efforts that those of you have the time and the effort to put before the MML and everything else. I'm very grateful for that, for the work of the other commissioners on this, and being able to take that time to do what we can.
All right. Well, in that case, I will work with Mr. Krantz and Mr. Small and draft a resolution for our consideration at our next meeting, probably February the 5th. All right.
Madam Chair, just a question. Are you guys considering actually submitting some written testimony to the General Assembly? Are you going to send the resolution or more of like a letter?
I was thinking that in the resolution, we should put all the language that we would put in a letter and send that. But I'm open to suggestions, and I do intend to talk to a couple of people about how best to present this.
It might be best if you guys draft a letter.
Okay.
And then kind of do it like you did with the county council bill that you wanted to object to on the hotel tax, is sort of take the letter and adopt it as a resolution, and instruct the staff to send it to the General Assembly to become part of the record in Annapolis.
And I think we'll also communicate that to MML as well, so that
Certainly,
we
you can do
fairly
that. Absolutely.
let them know. And all right.
And I'm happy to help if you want me to review it or anything.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further comment on this particular issue? In that case, we're up to commissioners' comments, and I have a couple I would like to make. First, the Hartford Cecil MML Group does have a scholarship committee. They award a $500 scholarship to, I think it's one from Hartford and one from Cecil. They try to be even. They do need somebody from Hartford to be on the committee. I know Adam Hobb from Aberdeen is already on it, but they're looking for somebody else. I would volunteer, but I know that my schedule is going to be having a problem very soon because there's a baby coming on March the 6th, and I will have additional calls on my time. So I will be here at all the meetings, but I'm trying not to take on anything additional. So everybody, if you could think about whether you could squeeze that in. I don't think it's a huge time commitment because it's a once-a-year thing. I think they take the applications, review the applications, make a decision on who to make the awards to. So I could check with Adam, or you could check with Adam to see if there's any more time, what the time commitment actually is.
Is it just a single meeting, you think?
I think it's probably just one. I
Right.
don't think they have a tremendous number. I will check with Adam and let you know.
Okay.
Second, I just wanted to point out, Ms. Moody, that the city of Frederick is light $290,000 as a result of some kind of wire fraud. It had to do with their building of their police station. I'm glad we haven't been a victim. I wish they had given more details in the article. I looked to see how they accomplished this because I know there are many checks and balances. If you know anybody in the city of Frederick, and you could make sure that it doesn't happen to us. I think maybe they didn't put the details in there because they didn't want to give anybody any ideas, but I was looking at them to see how they managed to pull that off. And I think it had something to do with a wire transfer. So I don't know if somebody said, here's the wire transfer number, and it was some scammer's number instead of the correct wire transfer. But they're getting better. They're getting very, very good.
So Madam Chair, Lisa, we do title work, when we do settlements, and I've get bulletins from Chicago Title of warning of wire falls. So the newest scam is they call and they say, I want to speak to Liz Thompson. Liz is a signatory. We've had a flag on the account, and it's usually a trust account or some, high-powered account.
Something that's going to get your attention.
Correct. And then they say, we need to verify that this is you. Okay, so they will text you a code, and it will come through on your caller ID as your bank, literally as your bank. And it will come through as your bank on your text. So they spoof the numbers.
Right.
And then when you call and they send the code, you have to read the code back to them. And the code is identifying you as a wire transfer. And meanwhile, the other person's on the other phone saying, yeah, my code is X.
Oh.
And they're giving it to the real bank. And then they're wiring all the funds out.
Man.
So that's what. So basically, we're being told, if our bank contacts us and just kind of do this as a rule of thumb, say, okay, I'll get back to you, and hang up.
And call the bank.
And call the bank because someone's gotten your information. Yeah.
They're getting pretty darn sophisticated and sneaky. So I read that and I felt very bad for the city of Frederick because that is a lot of money, and hopefully they catch the people, but half the time they're in the wind. Yeah, it's gone. Anyway, and I will be attending Wednesday from 6 to 8, the Governor Calvert House, the Greater Hartford Committee, and the Hartford County Chamber of Commerce. And Angela, you'll be attending as well? All right. So we'll be there at that. Everybody's welcome to join us.
I'll be there as well.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So we'll have a full complement then, or at least a good showing, not a full complement, but a respectable showing. Any other commissioners' comments? Yes, sir.
Would it be appropriate to advertise the Cecil Hartford Scholarship, like on our website and social media, to get the word out, or is somebody else doing that? Or
I think it goes to all the high schools. Is that correct?
I believe so. I believe so, and I also believe we can share it.
Share it.
Honestly, I already have.
There you go.
Okay.
To encourage as many people as possible, and I've shared it with
Absolutely.
school resource officers,
Great.
the Bel Air Police, to trickle it down.
Get the word out.
So, unless you
Terrific.
disagree, I would encourage
Oh,
it.
no, I think that's a great idea. And I know we've had at
Okay.
least one email from somebody who was looking for the paperwork, and so.
in
hopefully-
Cecil County, actually.
Cecil County, there you go.
But yes, yeah, okay, we'll put something on our spotlight and share it on social media.
Terrific.
Okay.
Madam Chair, at the MML meeting, we were talking about going to $1,000. Is that
Correct.
Is
I
that for
don't,
next year, or that won't affect this year?
they haven't, I don't think they made that decision. I think they're currently at 500 and want to take that up as
To
as a
1,000.
group, to vote on, to
Right.
move it to 1,000.
Okay.
So whatever it currently says in the paperwork, that's what it is, but I think it was 500 still. All right, anyone else?
Madam Chair, I have something. You mentioned, you and the commissioners had mentioned something before about if there was some exceptional, crime work or crime trends that we wanted to get out to the community and yourselves for notification
Absolutely.
purposes. We recently had a very good case, and it was a excellent example of some of the police work that we do here in the town of Bel Air. And just to be brief, and I know it wasn't, and I apologize, it wasn't on the agenda. I didn't see it till today, that it wasn't there. But I don't know if it's something you want to bring out, and it's
Sure.
involving a case that happened at Target. We had two juveniles that went inside. They're very accomplished, very skilled at what they do. Apparently, it looks like they're transients that come from all parts of the country, and it looks like this group had come from California. They managed to get into the secure area of Target, and they got into a locked gate area and managed to steal $24,000 worth of Apple products.
Wow.
35 Apple Watches, 5 Apple MacBook Pros, 2 Apple AirPods, 8 Apple iPhones, and 10 Apple iPads. So just to highlight the exceptional work that our cops do, and to kind of get some recognition to the officers, add some more motivation to them. I think it's a great idea to throw this out there. But this was Officer First Class Kadoff. He managed to get a tag, a registration plate. The registration plate was tracked to Anne Arundel County down in Severn. So that's an example of us, and maybe get the message out there that we don't stay within the boundaries of Bel Air a lot of times. So we worked with Anne Arundel County Police, did 2 search warrants, and we managed to get all of the products back. Seized the car, and a lot of work. And they're juveniles. There's some, questionable stuff now with legislation about charging juveniles, but we managed to charge one so far, and we're looking to charge the other. So we're holding these people accountable, and I think it's good to get the message out to them. So, but I appreciate that.
That sends a message. That's really
Yes,
terrific
yes, ma'am.
police work, and
Thank you.
kudos to the department. All right. Anything further? All right, in that case, could I have a motion to move into closed session?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
All right, Mr. Krantz, if you would call the roll.
Certainly, to move the meeting into closed session under the provisions of the Maryland Open Meetings Act, General Provisions, Article 3-305B7, to discuss the topics regarding to consult with counsel, to obtain legal advice regarding subpoena power for the Board of Ethics, building moratorium, as well as fee in lieu of open space. The reason for closed session discussion of the above topics will be because public discussion of confidential information, legal strategies can compromise attorney-client privilege and inhibit the ability of the public body to receive candid and uninhibited legal guidance. To approve going into closed session, Commissioner Rutledge.
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Chance.
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye. Just
Okay,
for the
the-
benefit of the public, we will not be returning to open session after our closed session.
You took the words out of my mouth. Thank you very much. Okay, it's 7:28. We're now going into closed session.